Vancouver again. This is George Muenz from CareerJoy. Thank you everybody for joining us. Couple of housekeeping items to consider. One, this particular webinar is automatically recorded. So if for whatever reason you have to leave early, you can always view it later on. Or if you have acquaintances or friends that weren't able to make it, you can point them to our site at careerjoy.com and they can view and download this particular webinar. Second thing is you have the ability to ask questions if you look at your control panel, and so please do so. I would hope for this to be quite interactive, and I will answer questions as we go through this process. If anybody has any particular difficulty in hearing what we're saying, please note that in the questions, and we'll try to fix that. So the presentation today is meant to assist people in understanding how to use LinkedIn in your job search strategy. So let's start. So the concept of look at my wall isn't something new. This has been around since caveman or cavewoman days, as you can see. So just a quick description of my background. I've been working in 40 years in various entrepreneurial ventures and in recruitment and HR for multiple companies. I've also been hired hundreds of staff throughout my career, and I've been fortunate to work with CareerJoy as a career coach for the last 7 years, and working with people at every single level in every single industry. So I'm hoping everybody can see my screen. Okay, so the first thing you have to ask yourself is why would I even be interested in any particular tool or service or product? There's actually very good speaker called Simon Sinek that you can find on the internet, who's written several books on why you would use the question why. And in fact, this why will establish benefit, and why is also the kind of question you would ask from a potential employer. Why would you hire me? Why am I your best candidate? Because if you can't ask that question and answer it, neither can they. So this is a very important, is to start with why. Why would I be interested? Why do I need LinkedIn? And why would I pay for LinkedIn? And this is an important question to ask because LinkedIn, being that it's the only service that offers this kind of capability, is not cheap. The why question is always asked to establish a benefit. What's the benefit of a particular product or service or feature? The first rule of marketing states benefits, then features. Show me the benefit first, then I'll be interested in the features. And by the way, this applies to your interviews and presentations as well. What's the benefit that you as a candidate bring to the table? Because if you can't articulate what benefit you offer, then the employer won't see that either. So the question has to be asked, why would I need LinkedIn? And then, of course, once I decide, yes, I do need LinkedIn, well, why would I pay to use this service? So what is LinkedIn? Many people assume that LinkedIn is a present. In other words, go to my LinkedIn page and you will see where I work, what my current title is, what my experience is, where I went to school. In other words, a showcase of what you have done. Actually, you must consider it as a tool, an effective tool in both job search, business development, network building, and so on. LinkedIn is a tool that business development professionals use to target decision makers who will be prime targets for their products or services. And essentially, you are doing business development stuff. You are seeking organizations that will utilize your services for revenue. So you need to basically consider using the same tool and process that a business development person would be using. We get caught up sometimes in separating the term job from really service offerings. And so you have to consider, I am actually offering my services for revenue. Yes, we call it a job, but how do I do that effectively? So LinkedIn is essentially, it's a new play on an old game. People have been advertising their services since the days of the Egyptians. And here's just a sort of example of a presence in the 1930s during the Depression, where people are advertising, I have multiple trades, I speak several languages, and I'm looking for a job. But basically, the only people that saw this were the people that happened to be in that location and walked by. And of course, they actually have to speak to this person to get their contact information. So what are the benefits of LinkedIn? Remember, we talked about we want to make sure that we establish a clear benefit. So there's three main benefits to using LinkedIn. The first one is recruiters use it heavily. I wish I had LinkedIn when I was a recruiter. The second benefit is it allows you to identify and target decision makers for particular job postings, and I will elaborate on this in further slides. The third benefit is it allows you the ability to build a network of decision makers in your targeted industry, location, sector, and role. And this is especially true if you're moving to another city, another province, another country where you don't have any connections or any network. LinkedIn allows you to do that. You can be in Canada, and let's say you're thinking of moving to Italy, you can build a network of people in Italy while you're still in Canada. So again, getting back to recruiters. Like I said, recruiters use LinkedIn heavily. Recruiters have an incentive to find people like you. They make their living place with people with their clients. So you want to be found by recruiters. Recruiters will find you by virtue of the connections you have in your industry, location, organizations you work for or previously worked for, certain search keywords such as technology, roles, etc. Recruiters are doing this all day, seeking to find people, and there's various ways they will conduct their searches. They might, for example, say, well, we want people with customer relationship management software experience. So they will search for people that have that experience, even if it's a competitor, basically try and find anybody that has that capability. Decision makers for job postings. So as you all know, when you go through the job search, and it's gotten way more complicated over the years than it used to be, where you basically sent your resume through the mail and it went to a decision maker and they had an interview, and it was pretty much a one-step process. Now there's multiple screenings and there's software that screens your resume based on keywords. If you don't have the keywords that they're searching for, your resume won't even show up. You have to work smart and identify and connect directly to the decision maker. Now, I know that many of you will tell me, well, all the postings say, you only need to apply and so on. But that doesn't mean you have to actually follow that rule. It's just like when I'm in business development, I don't target the receptionist for my proposal. I target the decision maker who will make the buying decision. Now, there's a possibility that when you engage with a decision maker, the person will say, well, I'm a big shot. I'm the head of the department. Why are you approaching me? And you will encounter that. But if I'm hiring people, I actually like that person that's made the extra effort to identify the decision maker and approach them directly. And it's especially true, of course, in a role that requires reaching decision makers, whether it's sales or business development, things of that nature. So I will appreciate more somebody that's made the effort to find a decision maker, because most people take the path of least resistance. I want people that make the extra effort. In our social media world today, it's easier than ever to find a decision maker. Back in the day, you had to use the phone book, and it was almost impossible to find a decision maker. These days, it's much easier to find a decision maker. The initial resume screener only sees the position for which you apply. The decision maker sees the bigger picture and knows how to better identify potential, not just for the specific posting, but upcoming opportunities within the organization. This is critical because if you're talking to the person that's screening the resume, that's all they see. But the people that lead the organization or decision makers, they see potential product launches coming down the pipe. They see potential acquisitions coming down the pipe. They see potential expansion coming down the pipe. This person that's screening the resume doesn't see that. So you're limiting yourself in terms of the possible opportunities by only going to the bottom of the screening process. So what's a decision maker now? LinkedIn will help you target decision makers in desired location. As of October 2717, LinkedIn has 530 million users. Some examples are Telus has 23,000, RBC 72, and Apple 178,000. So all these people are potential connections within these key organizations. And not all of them are looking for work. So it's not necessarily, oh, if I post on LinkedIn and I put my profile up, people will see that I'm looking for work. RBC, perfect example, 72,000 employees, not all of them are looking for work. Decision maker network. People who run organizations walk around all day thinking about challenges and opportunities. That's their job. When you engage with people that are leaders and ask the right questions, you identify opportunity. There are far more opportunities than job postings. And no organization will say, you know what? We have nothing to do. We have all the revenue we need. We've got all the customers we need. We've launched all the products we have to do. We have nothing to do. No such thing. In fact, most organizations don't even have enough time to achieve what they need to achieve, never mind additional projects that are on the sidelines. You can therefore create your own job when you engage with a decision maker and ask the right questions. You can create your own opportunity. And this is critical if you're moving to another industry or sector or another city, another country. You don't have a network there. You have to build that network with decision makers who will consider you. Remember, you have the ability to ask questions if you wish to do so. So what are LinkedIn connections? I often get people telling me, well, I'm not really on LinkedIn. I'm not on Twitter. It's a waste of time. And it's just like Facebook, and I'm not even on Facebook. So there is that perception that this is just another social media activity and not worth your time. And we've all got family and children and so on, and just can't waste time with that. So I describe LinkedIn as a social media Rolodex or an address book on steroids. When you connect to somebody on LinkedIn, you're connected to the network. When you connect to me, you connect to my network of 4,711 connections. Now, it's funny, I wrote this particular presentation, I started it on October 27th when I had 4,600 connections. And as of today, I've got 4,711 connections. So I added over 400 connections just in a couple of days. You don't need to know your LinkedIn connection personally. The goal is to assist each other in developing mutually beneficial outcomes, whatever that may be. When LinkedIn first launched, because it was such an unusual and different business model, they marketed it as some sort of exclusive network between you and the people you know. Because that's how people understood it. Oh, I want to be part of this exclusive network. And you still get a situation where some people will say, well, why are you asking me to connect with you? I don't know you. And really, that there's no point in connecting to people you already know. The benefit is to connect to people that you don't know who could potentially assist you and you can assist them in some sort of need, whether it's a job or a project or what have you. So most of you are probably younger than 60 and you're saying, well, what's a Rolodex? So this was the advanced technology back in the day, and you could even sort it alphabetically and staple the business card of your contact onto this little address book and find the people you needed to talk to. So obviously that doesn't really work anymore in today's international world. So why decision makers? Organizations today receive thousands of resumes. And one of the reasons I mentioned 60 is, of course, I remember back in the day, and many of you probably do, when you would type up your resume and you would put it in a nice envelope and send it, and the receiver would open the envelope and read your resume. It was very much a one-to-one situation. does not exist anymore. Organizations get thousands of resumes. In fact, many of them use software to filter resumes based on keywords. Simply, they cannot handle the volume. The people that screen resumes are most often the most junior members of the recruitment team. They only see the posting in front of them and not necessarily all possible opportunities within an organization. So you have to understand, and I'm going to give you an example later on. So here's an example of resume screening at a Fortune 500 company. They could be working on 40 jobs at the same time, given the size of the company, easily. You look at a company like Telus, at branches all across the country, they definitely have hundreds of jobs at the same time. Let's assume a conservative estimate of 100 resumes per job. And believe me, that's conservative. That's 4,000 resumes. How much time will your resume get? I get people telling me a minute, 2 minutes. Actually, it's probably more like 10 seconds. So will your resume even show up through the screening filters? I have had many, many clients tell me, oh, I sent out 200 resumes. I had no responses whatsoever. It's very possible your resume only showed up 10 times. Will your resume be seen by the decision makers? So even if your resume does show up, the person that's filtering the resume, for whatever reason, whether they're understanding of your abilities or your benefits, does not pass your resume on. So it's great. You sent the best resume possible. You have the greatest skills. It never reached the person that had to see it. So what types of LinkedIn connections are there? People sometimes don't understand what that word LinkedIn connection means. A first connection means I am directly connected on LinkedIn to that individual. I have sent that person a LinkedIn invite, or they sent one to me, and we agreed to connect. A second connection means I'm connected through a direct connection. So for example, I'm connected to Alan, who is connected to Aaron. A third connection means we have no connection whatsoever. So here's an example of a list of my connections. Like I said, it's gone up to 4,711. And it shows by recently connected. And of course, I can send each one of these people a message should I want to, whether in LinkedIn or outside LinkedIn. First connections. So here's an example of people that I'm directly connected to. And note that not only am I directly connected to these people, but we actually share multiple connections between us. So for example, the first one, Ashika, she and I share 138 connections. So that's the beauty of LinkedIn, that when I'm connected to somebody, I'm connected to their network and they're connected to mine. So it's not just a one-to-one, but a one-to-many. Second connection is where I'm connected to that person through other people. Now, the benefit of having multiple connections is that you can see I have, with Alicia, 156 shared connections. So if I send Alicia an invite to connect, she will say, whoa, George and I already share 156 connections. We're basically best buddies. So much more amenable to saying, yes, I think we should connect because we share many mutual connections. So that, again, the benefit of being on LinkedIn is not just being on LinkedIn, but the multiple connections gives me 156 people that I can choose between to say, hey, can you introduce me to Alicia? Hopefully people that know me. Same thing with Ravi Raj. I have 16, 22 with Michael Chan, and 70 with FG, right? So again, having multiple connections gives me the ability to have somebody that's sure to know the person that I want to connect to. Now, this is kind of funny. I tried to find an organization in which I have no connections. So I said, oh, let me try Harrods in London. I've never been there, and I can demonstrate that I have no connections there. Well, it turns out I actually do have connections, even in Harrods. But you can tell the difference. The first Tracy, we have no connection at all. She's the third connection. So I would have to develop that connection. But Rose, on the other hand, because I share 16 connections with her, LinkedIn allows me to connect without having to have their email or their contact info, because LinkedIn says, oh, you already share 16 connections. you're somewhat connected already. I'll make it easy for you to connect. LinkedIn wants us to be connected. They benefit from having a large volume of people connected. So even in an organization that I thought I had absolutely no connections, I in fact have several of them. So the benefits of connections. A direct connection can provide you information about the organization, more information about posted positions, information about the hiring process, and advice on engagement with the decision makers. And you know the old cliche, which is very true these days, it's not what you know, it's who you know. So the ability to be able to connect to somebody that's a decision maker or can direct you to a decision maker is absolutely critical in this information overloaded world. A direct connection can also introduce you to the decision maker for that particular position you're interested in. And a second connection can help you find the key decision maker within the organization. Now, I want to give a little tip here. Let's say you know somebody personally within an organization you wish to work for. Even your best friend might feel a bit awkward introducing you into their company because, yes, we're friends, but I don't know your work ethic. Could you potentially embarrass me? So I never put people in a position where it's kind of awkward for them. And I will ask them, can you suggest who I should talk to that would be the decision maker for this position? So if they tell you, oh, give me your resume, I'll get in front of them, well, great, then that's easy. But if they don't feel comfortable, they can give you the contact information for the decision maker and you can approach them yourself. So always use that method. Make sure you don't make it awkward for the person you know, even if you think they're your best friend, to allow you to gain entry to the right people. Here's an example. So I have 2 weeks ago, I had a CareerJoy client that she was interested in opportunities with 2 different companies in Vancouver. She's not from here, so she didn't have any sort of network here. I looked at both firms. One of them had a direct connection to a key executive who was actually a former CareerJoy client. And the second one had a direct connection to a key executive that was a client of mine at a previous employer. So I was able to introduce her directly to these key decision makers because they were connections of mine. So that's how powerful LinkedIn is. So how does it work? So you have to create your profile on LinkedIn. You sign up. Initially, I would encourage signing up for the free version till you get your profile completely set up. Make sure your summary has key categories and successes related to that category. And I'll give an example in the next slide. And why is this important? People do not have time to read. They barely have time to read what they already have to read. So it's my job, both in my resume and cover letter and LinkedIn profile, to make it easy as possible for the people that I'm trying to engage to quickly scan my information and get it. Long paragraphs do not work. I have to make things simple. There's a reason Twitter used to be 140 characters. They've now expanded it because people don't have an attention span. So Twitter was successful because they realized that if we force people to deliver information in bite-sized modes, people will get it. People want to read it. Add your work history. No need to enter a lot of detail. People don't have time to read the profiles. Enough to say where you worked, your title, date, and a brief success story. Adding skill, certification, tools you use in order to appear in search results. And this is important. Ask friends that are not connected to you to search for someone like you in your location to see if you show up. I have had numerous clients who are on LinkedIn and they're not getting any sort of connection or interaction because they're actually not showing up. And sometimes it's a simple thing like they didn't put the name of their city in their profile. So if I'm looking for somebody in Toronto, that person's not going to show up because they don't have Toronto in their profile. Here's an example of a LinkedIn summary. So again, I've made it easy for the readers to see, based on certain categories that are expected of a leader, a little success story relating to that category. So the first thing the reader sees, here's what I'm my key areas of success and some success stories that I've done. So they already establish how you stand out. Okay, instead of the usual things we see, like I work hard and I love my dog and I love my baby and get along well. You know, the thing you see in every resume: I work well alone or with a team. Those things really don't make any difference. It's how have you been successful? What have you achieved in your role? Here's somebody you might know on LinkedIn. Um, so even the Prime Minister of Canada feels that it's a benefit to LinkedIn. And notice that I share 28 connections with Justin Trudeau. So we're practically soulmates. Um, and again, an example of the basically the highest office in the land understands the value of LinkedIn. How to invite the connection? You have to keep it simple. We have a tendency to provide a lot of information in the hope that it will convince the person to take action. But people don't have time. You have to keep it simple. So I almost always use the stock invite. Would you be part of my network? Once they've accepted your invite, they have then seen your profile. Following that, you can send them an email. Thank you for accepting my LinkedIn invitation. I've been following your organization for a while. Would like to chat about some of your projects. Now it's a warm contact as they've seen your profile. But I don't want to jump on somebody that I don't know. Oh, here's my resume. I'm looking for a job. Can you take the time to look at it? They don't know you. They don't know anything about you. So I typically just say, here's my invite. Please accept it. I just want to add you to my network. I make it simple. I don't put too much stress on them. They've already got enough stress. Remember, you have the ability to ask questions at any time during this process. So here's an example of the stock message that I use, and you can see that she accepted my invite, and I just basically used, I'd like to add you to my professional network on LinkedIn. Now, she's seen my profile. Now I can follow up and say, hey, Sarah, thanks so much for accepting. Love what you guys do. Congratulations on this recent award you got. Wonder if we could chat a bit about some projects that are upcoming, right? Now, building your network. So notice again, I've got 4,711 connections, and I actually didn't work that hard to build this. It wasn't like it was a major function of my day. I did a little bit every day. Now, one of the key successes that I had was I basically used the people you may know function quite a bit. Because again, like I said before, LinkedIn wants you to be connected. So it's showing me here, for instance, Stefan, we share 148 connections. So, and because of that, LinkedIn gives me the ability to connect with this person without having to have any previous affiliation. Stefan will look at my invite and say, oh, George and I share 148 connections. So much more prone to accept my invite. And so this is very easy to do. Okay, very good question about personalizing. And yes, there are definitely cases where you will personalize your invite based on somebody who referred you, you saw they won an award of some sort or international recognition, or they just went public. So yeah, so it's not a carved in stone rule, but it more often than not, you just have to be brief because people are just too busy. So I use, like I said, I use the people you may know quite a bit, and the more people you have in your network, the more people you may know it will present to you. And it's also quite clever in that it will present people to you in the range of kinds of people you've been looking for. So if I, for example, try to connect to HR people quite a bit. I try to connect to employment lawyers quite a bit. So you can see here that the people that are, and the people you may know, are people that are lawyers and HR people. So endorsements. I get asked a lot by people about endorsements and um, recommendations. So endorsements are approvals of your skills by your connection. Think of them like an Amazon rating a book to products. It gives you 2 stars or 3 stars. In this case, in endorsements, you basically endorse it or you don't endorse it. It's basically a check mark. In certain service industries, these ratings can lead to buying decisions, right? So if I see on Amazon that many people rated the book very high, it gives me an incentive to say, okay, many other people liked it, so it looks like it's valuable. The skills with the highest number of endorsements usually appear on top of the skills list, which of course gets them even more placement because people don't tend to go down to, skill number 45 and endorse it. These are also very, very important in search results. So if I'm looking for somebody that does career coaching and I see, so obviously the weight of many, many endorsements will bring that particular person up to the front. I have another connection here. Okay, so very good point. Somebody asked, why do I want to connect to lawyers unless we're in the legal field? So in my case, I'm connecting to lawyers because employment lawyers, for example, will often work with their clients to suggest that they offer some sort of outplacement package to employees that are being terminated or laid off for whatever reason. So I'm hoping that these lawyers will recommend the services of CareerJoy. I connect a lot with HR people for the same reason. Human resource people will often use our services not just in terms of the services we offer in coaching, but also we do many workshops on leadership and leadership assessment and onboarding and so on. So I want human resource professionals to be in my network. If you're in, say, sales, so I want vice presidents of sales to be in my network. So you always have to think, okay, who are the people that can be beneficial into what I do as part of my network? So here's an example of endorsements, and you can see, now it typically only lists 99 plus, it doesn't list the actual number. But this individual was endorsed by many people for career counseling, career development, leadership development. So if I'm a potential customer of, in this particular case, CareerJoy, and I go into the site and I see, oh, so all these people endorsed this particular coach for all these skills, right? And this becomes unsolicited. You don't actually ask people for this, unlike recommendations. People will say, hey, this person did a really good job for me. I'm going to give them a symbol of approval. Recommendations are more detailed references provided by people who may have been leaders, employees, clients, suppliers, and that's very important. So recommendations give you a broader range than references because they could be people you worked for, you worked with, people you were a supplier for or a client for. So you have a much larger range of potential people that can give you a recommendation than is typical in a reference in a job. You can approve the text and tone of the recommendation before it appears on your LinkedIn profile. And that's very valuable because somebody may say something good about you, but the way they nuance it isn't exactly what you would like to have appear publicly. So you can edit and decide what you want to appear on your site. Recommendations tell a story. You can think of them as a Yelp type review. So here's an example of recommendations where somebody basically gives you a bit more detail about their work with this particular individual. And, it gets really into detail that, a person was facing all kinds of challenges and came to CareerJoy and was helped in what they needed help in. Okay, I'm noticing that people are talking about the files can't be downloaded, so we'll fix that and we'll make them available for download. So another feature on LinkedIn is the ability to search for jobs on LinkedIn. And again, you'll notice that I have connections in each one of these jobs. It's a little bit obscured, but I have connections in the organization that people are seeking to hire. So here's an example of a job search that I went into LinkedIn and I searched for a position, posted position as account executive. And all these positions came up. So for example, sales talent agency, I have 3 connections that work there. At Telus, I have 27 connections. So I can find out, okay, who's the decision maker for this position? What's the hiring process? When do they want the person to start? What's the pay like? What are the benefits like? So I can be prepared before I even apply so that I'm making the smartest, I'm taking the smartest process in order to try to succeed in my application. And again, I just did this randomly. And you can see that pretty much every single employer, I have a connection there of some sort. Here's a particular organization that I chose. So I narrowed it down to Telus, and I can decide, okay, which one of these people knows me the best and would be willing to, help me in navigating the whole hiring process there. And of course, the more connections I have, the more people I potentially could draw on to help me achieve what I need to achieve. So, for example, in this particular Toronto position, I have 27 connections that work in that location that can help me gain information on what I need to do. A little tip that you might want to use as you're going through LinkedIn, or even if you don't use LinkedIn, most organizations today use what's called an email protocol, meaning a certain standard as to how people within that organization have to use email. And typically it'll be either first name dot last name at the domain or first initial last name. So even if you don't know the contact information for that person, you could probably guess it by using one of these two protocols. A little trick that I do sometimes, especially in bigger companies, is I go into their public relations or investor relations and try to find a contact there, because usually the people that are in that department will list their contact info. And when you look at their email, you can see what protocol they use, which is probably the same protocol used by the decision maker you want to target. Now, the question, of course, now becomes, do I use, can I get away with using the free version? Why would I use the paid version? I'm not working, money's tight. I don't want to be spending money on it, but I don't understand why I would spend. So, so I have currently 4,700 connections. Most of them acquired over the past 7 years. Most I actually acquired when it was free. The premium service in the past really did not offer value. And I think LinkedIn finally realized that, and they've changed. Of course, they're now owned by Microsoft. And I now recommend actually purchasing the paid version. Now, the nice thing is usually LinkedIn will offer the first month free, and you can cancel at any time. I pay $89 a month, which is not cheap. It's over $1,000 a year. The main reason I use it is because I want to be able to show my clients how to use LinkedIn. So it's worth it for me to do it. But even if you're working, if you're not working, and therefore there's an income loss, it's worth spending $90 a month for the period that you're looking in order to be much more effective in your job search. Now, unfortunately, they have several modules within the premium: a career module, a recruiter module, a sales module. The career module doesn't offer the key lead builder function, which the sales navigator module uses, and I'll show you that. So I actually purchased the sales navigator module as opposed to career module. So here's what the Sales Navigator module looks like. And I've got all kinds of articles from people, but the key ability is what I call a lead builder. So it basically gives you a bunch of criteria that you can select and build a database of people or leads that you want to target. So here's an example where I've targeted in my postal code in Vancouver, the title of VP Sales in computer software. And I received 58 results. So this gives me the ability to say, okay, and I just moved to Vancouver. I'm looking for a job in software sales, and I need to talk to the VPs in various organizations at that level. This is exactly what a business development person would do if they're trying to sell software or sell services to a particular organization. So here's an example of a search where I'm a specialist in NetScreen, and again, I'm looking for organizations that use NetScreen, because that makes the most sense for me to apply to organizations that are using key technology that I'm comfortable with and I'm knowledgeable in. So again, I did the same thing using postal code, and I put in NetScreen, no title, and I have 48 results. So now I can go and take a look at each of these organizations and see, you know, um, how do they use NetScreen? Do they have opportunities? I can even approach them and say, hey, I just moved here, or I'm available, and I see that you use NetScreen, And do you have any projects coming up that potentially I could participate in? So this is, again, a very effective way of finding out where you might be needed. Another example of search results, once I've actually done that lead builder. So here's an example of people that came up in that 48 results for NetScreen. And here's a person that works in this company, Click. They actually do legal software. And I have 24 connections to this particular individual. So I can ask somebody, hey, can you introduce me to Van der Vera? Or, you know, give me the right person to talk to. Here's another one, Telus, another one, Hootsuite. So all these companies are possible connections to a decision maker in the company that uses the tools that I'm marketable in. So to summarize, in today's market, where everyone is inundated with communications, you owe it to yourself to work smart. We've always been told, you know, in our society, work hard and you'll get what you want. You have to work smart because you're facing an overloaded system. LinkedIn is a tool that can use to identify organizations, decision makers, connections to get your foot in the door. I have many, many clients tell me, once I'm in the interview, I do really well. I cannot get past the screening. Too many people still use outdated methods of job search, no different than when job ads appeared in newspapers. You can do better than that. And I, of course, remember that. You would wait for Thursday for the newspaper that came out with the classified. You'd circle the one you want. You type up your resume and mail it and hope something happened. Utilize the tools that are available today to make it much more effective. If you do just one step better than others, you're ahead of the game, as most people follow the path of least resistance. This is important. I want to hire people that are willing to take the extra step, because if you're not willing to take the extra step and do the extra work for yourself, you probably won't do it for me, your employer. So thank you for your time. I just thought you'd find this kind of interesting, where, you know, instead of my resume, I printed out my daily horoscope. You can see that I'm a special person who's just destined for great things. CareerJoy can help. We work with clients just like you every single day across Canada at every level in every sector and industry. We coach you through the process from establishing clear strategies and goals to resumes and cover letters, use of LinkedIn, interview preparation, offer negotiation, and ongoing career guidance once you've landed in a desired position. The job search process has become so complex with so many layers and so many assessments and so many tests that it's worth investing your time like you would invest in other services to make you much more effective and get you in front of that decision maker and be properly trained and capable of dealing with, you know, standing out as opposed to other candidates. You have our contact information here should you require more assistance or more information. If you have problems with the hand